Okay, it is such a pleasure to see all of your beautiful faces here tonight. My name is Mike DeLuca. I am your host. This is the Integrative Wellness and Development Podcast. So grateful that you're here tonight. We have an absolutely amazing show. I am so excited about this interview. I'm so excited about the two folks that we're going to be speaking about their organization, all the incredible work they're doing, and about an absolutely inspiring gentleman who has been inspiring people for many, many years. Tonight, we have Gabe Videla and Jeffrey Cordone from the Desmond Doss Foundation. And we're going to talk about just who Desmond Doss was. He was a Medal of Honor winner from World War II. He was the first Conscientious Objector to win that award, which was presented to him by President Harry Truman. And actually, this month is the 80th anniversary of Desmond receiving that award. And that's why I feel very honored and grateful to be having these folks on the show. So I want to, first of all, welcome you all again, let you know that we do not make any attempts to say this show is going to, I have to say this by law, this show is going to cure or prevent any illness or diagnose any kind of illness, that the things that we're going to share tonight are going to make you instant millionaires or change your life. That's not what we're here for. What we're here for tonight is to share information, education, inspiration, right? And to hopefully help you have a better life for you, your friends, your family, your community. So much of what we're going to share is applicable to all of that. So with that, please help me welcome Gabe Videla and Jeffrey Cordone from the Desmond Doss Foundation. Gabe and Jeffrey, I am so honored and so grateful that you're on the show, so grateful to have the opportunity to connect with your organization. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Pleasure to be
Likewise.
With you.
Well, great. Let me have a little graphic here I'm going to share with folks. So tonight, we're speaking about Desmond Doss. We're speaking about his legacy. We're speaking about the incredible impact that his courage and values and ethics have made on the world and are making on the world, and how you can involved in that. And as you can see on the screen, Desmond, who unfortunately is no longer with us physically, but he is always with us in spirit, and he is living through the foundation that is carrying on his work. The life of Desmond was the foundation of the award-winning documentary, The Conscientious Objector. We're going to talk more about that tonight and how you can actually watch that documentary. And then in 2016, the blockbuster movie Hacksaw Ridge. Both of these were based on the life of Desmond Doss. So first person that I would like to introduce to you and have him speak a little bit about his involvement with the foundation is Gabe Videla. I'd like to just give a brief biography that I took from some of the websites. This is a very busy guy, and this is a guy who has had a lot of experience in the fields that we're speaking about. He's CEO of D'Artagnan Entertainment, which produces movies and documentaries and television shows. He is CEO of Special Effects Unlimited. He was an executive producer for the documentary The Conscientious Objector, which again, you're going to have an opportunity to view. He was associate producer for the feature film Hacksaw Ridge. He is now member of the Desmond Doss Council and serves as chairman and CEO of the Desmond Doss Foundation. A little tidbit: after viewing the 4-minute trailer reel of The Conscientious Objector, Gabe decided to assist the producer director in raising production funds and overseeing the project so that Terry, who was the producer and director, could concentrate on directing. Because of his extensive experience in the film business, dealing with major films, Gabe was designated as the exclusive representative for the Doss Council to negotiate the formal agreement with Pandemonium Film and all subsequent assignee film industry entities. This was a challenge as Hollywood wanted to depict Desmond's character with its own creative license, and we all know where that heads, right? A crucial issue that Gabe refused to compromise on, and thank you, Gabe, for doing that. Desmond had to be portrayed as he was a simple, humble young man with no vices or profanities for which Hollywood is famous in distorting. As production of The Conscientious Objector moved to completion, Gabe reached out to his producing partner, Jeffrey Cordone, and we will introduce Jeffrey in a second. But Gabe, I'm going to stop this PowerPoint for a minute. And I'm so fascinated by the timeline of how things work. As I had told you, I found out about Desmond's story from Gregory Crosby back when he had originally got involved and met Desmond and interviewed, and a book, and then all of this other stuff happened, and then a screenplay or two or whatever happened, and then there was this long period of over a decade where I didn't hear anything. And then all of a sudden, I was watching the TV, and there it was, Hacksaw Ridge, and Mel Gibson, directing, and these incredible actors, and I was so excited, I jumped up and down. I was so excited, but I had no idea. And again, I'm not in your business, and thank God that people like you are in the business and not me. I don't know if I would have the patience, the wherewithal, the connections, or whatever to make something like this happen. Could you tell us your story about how it went?
I'll encapsulate it. Okay,
please.
Because we have a limited amount of time, and I want Jeffrey to be able to expound on really fulfilling the simple wish. I have been involved in secular stuff in the movie business, doing hundreds and hundreds of movies, providing motion picture special effects, while at the same time establishing relationships with studios, producers, production executives that go beyond just the, hey, how you doing type of thing. As a result of that, because I care about people, I established a pathway to provide opportunities for many people, not just special effects guys. I mean, there's easy 10,000 careers that I have impacted in the movie business, and another, at least half of that in outside of the movie business. But really, getting involved with the movie business myself, I ran away from it. Like, I didn't want anything to do with it. When I first heard about it, when I wasn't even involved in it, back I was living in Colorado, I just didn't. I felt the movie business was kind of a screwy business, but the circumstances in my life led to my getting involved and meeting this iconic guy, Joe Lombardi, who was an amazing individual. But there was chemistry. We were so diametrically opposite of each other. Here I'm a business guy, and he's just a rough, tough guy from Passaic, New Jersey, and he was a craftsman. But nonetheless, we meshed together and helped build Special Effects Unlimited into a very powerful servicing organization that provided services to the industry. If I fast forward that to 2001, this was about a month after the 9/11 attacks. I got visited by a young editor and Terry Benedict, who I had known for about 10 years prior to that time. and they came to see me, and Terry had this little VHS trailer, and I took a look at this thing, and I said, "What do you want from me?" And I said, "I'm busy with all this other stuff." But he says, "Well, you know of Desmond? I've heard of him, yeah, but." He said, "Well, this is a nonprofit thing, and I need to raise money." I said, "Well, that's not going to be that easy in this business, okay? These guys raise millions of dollars for their secular movies, and doing something that's, it's got religious overtones to it, that type of character. That's not going to be that easy to do. But let me take a look at the thing." I thought about it, and I decided I would get involved, and that involvement led to a whole new series of challenges in my life, and at the same time, Jeffrey, who had only been with me for a year or two, because I had met him years before and wanted him to get into the business, but he decided not to do it at the time. It was back in 1987, and I think it was 2000. He called me. He says, "Look, I decided I want to get in the movie business." He loved it, for one thing. He had a passion for the creative aspects of it. So Jeffrey had been with me in the special effects business and was doing a great job. And because of his efficiency in production, I felt that he could be valuable to us. Not initially, but this, I think Jeffrey went was 2003, 2002,
2003.
Yeah, when we were getting towards completion of this thing. And it led to the finishing of the documentary, and that happened in, I think we released it I think it was in March of 2004. And from that, it led to the further involvement of the motion picture. And the reason it took so long was because in Hollywood, it's all about availability. Some people liked it, some people didn't. We went through many, many actors. Mel Gibson turned us down twice. There were a number of potential directors. We couldn't get them to commit. In 2013, 2013, Randall Wallace wanted to get involved, so we attached him to it, and then he left us in 2000, about a year later. That really held things up. And then he said he would talk to Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson was at a crossroads in his career. You know, he'd had some problems, and he decided to do it. And then there were other technicalities of who was going to handle the financial end of this thing from a production standpoint. Walden Media, which I was very thrilled was involved, but they clashed with Mel on exactly what the way it was stylistically was going to be presented on the screen. Anyway, nonetheless, the movie was made, and to the surprise of everyone, when it premiered at the Venice Film Festival, it really impacted a lot of people. We had, as a result from that, if you look at the trailer, you go back, if you look at the trailer of what they said at the film festival, it was the last, the last party that they had with him. They premiered the thing. But anyway, there was a rousing applause that started the minutes the credits were rolling. And the movie was of such impact that it revived Mel's career, and it was seen by hundreds of millions of people around the world. And then, of course, we had to deal with the politics of the business at the same time that this thing was being released. So was La La Land, and the movie industry had its favorite of what it wanted to do. The movie is the Hacksaw Ridge received a number of awards and Academy Award nominations, but that wasn't enough. They took it off the theatrical circuit. When it was at the top, generating all these things, they took it off in favor of promoting La La Land. I mean, they reduced the screens from 3,500 screens to 1,800 screens, and that, you know, and so we were met with a lot of challenges, but nonetheless, it set the framework for the formation of the Desmond Doss Foundation, which took place in 2018. And it was when we did the foundation that we brought Jeffrey in to be involved in helping us with this thing, because he was extremely organized, and he was very familiar with the Desmond Doss story, very familiar with it, not only as a member of Desmond's church, but also his familiarity with Desmond since childhood, having been educated in that church system. In any case, Jeffrey's been an integral part and really the key mover of fulfilling Desmond's wish. Desmond was a simple guy with a simple focus on what he wanted. He went to his church, he could entrust him to make this documentary, and then the documentary influenced a lot of people, but the movie, what evolved from that documentary is just incredible. The movie was beautifully done, and Jeffrey embraced everything that we wanted to do and just took charge by creating an educational series, which we call EDUSODES, which lead to the ability for us now to send to the public in all kinds of mediums for free. It took a lot of money to do this, but let me tell you, we scraped this, and Jeffrey can take $1 and go like that. I mean, it was amazing what he did. But and here we are meeting people like you, that, you know, you come out of the woodwork. I mean, you talked to Gregory Crosby, and there were so many things that happened with this story that involved Gregory Crosby and people attached to him that I was not even aware of when I first got. I was solicited to get involved. I made up my mind to do it, and it was like I took the right turn off the road. I never got back. It's been 24 years. You know, because I made that decision in 2001, and then Jeffrey made that decision in 2003, and here we are, immersed in moving forward with this story. Desmond just wants to influence young people at a time in this world where that positive influence to lead a moralistic life is very important. And that's where Jeffrey comes in, and I want him to expound upon these core values of character that are so impactful. To really understand how impactful they are, you need to have a history and see how young people, kids who normally I could care less about stuff like this, they're busy doing the thing, but people who met him, who met this man, just looking at him, and you see the vast generational difference. But what exuded from Desmond's persona was this powerful truth. You look at him, you look at a guy who has faced impossible situations, impossible. The documentary accentuates that because the story is told through the eyes of the people who witnessed it with their own two eyes on the battlefield. The motion picture showed it in a realistic fashion from a more entertainment value to the people, but it was impactfully entertaining. And after going through a lot of challenges with that process, here we are, and we're on your program, and I want Jeffrey to expound on this. This is his passion. I mean, he is fulfilling a wish that Desmond gave him personally before he died, and Desmond's very grateful for everything that happened. But, you know, Jeffrey is now carrying that torch, and with the people that we know collectively, and who are part of our organization, that have given of their time and energy to produce what we think is a very fascinating and inspirational, impactful set of edges. They're like videos, but they're education. We call them EDUSODES. and we've also licensed that trade style, so nobody has it, and it's amazing. With each group that sees it, we have another pair of eyes and another form of being able to tell the story and get it out there. You know, you're just one degree of separation from everybody. So the more people that see this and get, I mean, it's interesting to see how the kids react. And you were to accompany Jeffrey and see how these kids are. We go to schools and show the documentary, talk about Desmond, and here they are. You know, they're separated from this old guy, but they're the influence, the simple influence of truth and honesty and perseverance and patriotism and all these things that embody the seven key things that we have for character values that we have created in a very creative way to show examples of what he did. And it really, hopefully, there'll be a percentage of young people that see this. Young people, I mean, you know, kids from their teens up to young adults. You know, even in the collegiate realm, young people, the cadets at the military academy.
Yeah, and there's no more important time than right now. If we look at what's going on in the world and what's going on in our country and what's going on, you know, in the lives of our youth, there's never been a time where this was more important. So, yeah, and so Gabe, thank you so much for laying the foundation of introducing how everything started. And again, thank you for your role and your continued role in what you do. I'm going to bring Jeffrey on. I'm going to come on with his slide here. Here we go. And so, little introduction, folks. Jeffrey Cordone, who happens to be an RN. My sister's an RN. I know exactly the power and the commitment it takes to be that. Acting president of the Desmond Doss Foundation, also chairman of the Desmond Doss Memorial Golf Tournament, which we're going to talk about, and that our organization has had the privilege of being sponsoring a golfer there, a veteran who will be a golfer there. Jeffrey brings 25 years in the independent film production industry as a production supervisor. He was also a production executive in the documentary, The Conscientious Objector. Again, we're going to talk about that. I want everybody to see this documentary, and we're going to make that happen for the people who are in our audience tonight. He's an executive, administration, and management, a consulting healthcare professional, a COVID-19 compliance officer. Jeffrey served as production executive to oversee special screenings and prepare the documentary for marketing. It was largely through Jeffrey's efforts that The Conscientious Objector was entered into various film festivals where it won 23 top awards. Of essential contribution was Jeffrey's nursing skills, one of his many career qualifications that enabled him to travel the country with Desmond and the team. And because Desmond required special attention to his health needs, one of which was constant availability of oxygen, I'm sure mobility was an issue there as well. When Hacksaw Ridge was released to worldwide acclaim, Jeffrey's administrative management talents were called upon to join the Doss Foundation as a member of their advisory board to head the Desmond Doss Memorial Golf Tournament that was going to facilitate fundraising. His success in this endeavor led to Jeffrey's elevation in 2020 to become a full board member and acting president with the retirement of the founder of the foundation, Charles Knapp, in 2022. Jeffrey has taken on his new responsibilities with zeal, and he is now spearheading the EDUSODES Character Development Educational Initiative. Wow, what a dynamic duo you two are. Jeffrey, welcome to the show. Thank you so much I have, God, I have so many questions for you, Jeffrey. Could you tell us a little bit about why you got involved with this? And you are one of very few people who had the chance to actually meet with Desmond, travel with him, and see the impact he personally had on people, as well as the documentary and then eventually the movie. So can you share a little bit with us?
Mike, thank you for the invitation to be here with you. Quite a journey. I get emotional today. Yes, when Gabe asked me to come on board, there were challenges in finishing the doc, but I positioned it for the film festival circuit and for Academy Award consideration, which is quite laborious. But in that process, I traveled with Desmond over a period of 2 years, about 18 months. And we took him to many special events, the world premiere in San Jose. And what I want to share is just a couple of snippets because they'll give further context to the dynamics of this story. The premiere was at World Fest in San Jose in May of 2004. And Helfton Husty, who was the co-founder of the film festival, at that time, 2004, there were only 840 film festivals worldwide, because it was really film and digital was still coming on. Today, there's over 3,000, but it was it was the 13th largest and most respected film festival in the world at the time. They actually requested us to have the documentary shown on closing night on a Sunday evening. They'd never done that before. And Halfton came up to me the night of the screening. He goes, "Jeffrey, we've got a problem." I said, "What's going on?" And he goes, "Follow me." We went to the front of the theater. He cracked open the door, and there was over 850 people in line and around the corner. The theater only held 500. He said, "Can we have a second screening?" I said, "Absolutely." Over 300 people waited in line for a second screening because the Q&A after the film was a little more protracted. And it was protracted because the audience didn't know that there was a special guest in the audience. CineQuest has a special Maverick Spirit Award that they give a filmmaker who goes against the grain of Hollywood and just creatively does their thing. Well, it was Arnold Schwarzenegger who received it that year. So Halfton gets up and he says some really wonderful things about Arnold. And he goes, "But tonight, folks, you just saw a video, a documentary film on a real hero and a real maverick." And they brought Desmond up on stage. They did not know he was in the audience.
Goodness.
And they presented him with this Maverick Spirit Award. The house was on a standing ovation for over 9 minutes. That was the beginning of us taking Desmond's story to the world in the film festival circuit. We received over 23 laurel wreaths collectively, many, many different categories. But from that, I also took Desmond on a couple of special trips. And one of those was to Washington, D.C. Had a special private tour as a Medal of Honor recipient in the Capitol. And of course, as you're wheeling him through those corridors, congressmen and representatives and senators are coming out, the Capitol Police. It was quite an experience. And he never turned anyone away. He never turned anyone away in those film festival screenings. He would sit there for hours waiting to shake their hands and visit with them, which is another experience I'll share in a couple of minutes. But from that, he was extremely exhausted after that tour of the Capitol. But that very afternoon, after about 2 or 3 hours, it was the newly erected World War II monument in Washington. So we drove over there. I said, "Desmond, you're pretty tired. Would you like to take your Medal of Honor off so that you can have a quiet, reflective time here at the memorial?" And he goes, "No, I want the children to come to me."
Mike, I wanted to interject briefly here, something that happened at CineQuest. You got to understand, this is a film festival that I believe at the time was the 8th or 10th largest film festival in volume in the world. Okay. There was a critic up there that we were forewarned by Halfdan Hussey. He said, this guy has trashed every film, every winning film that has ever been played. He's trashed it. And when this guy saw the Conscientious Objector, he gave it a page and a half. I mean, a page and a half review, a glowing review of this film. And that
Pretty
was
awesome.
a really impactful. He says, Gabe, you don't want to get one-on-one with this guy. This guy trashes everything. But it was an amazing development just to show you the impact of what Desmond, because Desmond was almost devoid. He was unaware that he was causing all of this positive reaction. He was just a simple guy, but he was thrilled with the attention and everything. But he truly was not aware of just how magnificent his character was impacting everybody around him. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
And in Desmond's church, there's a group of young people called Pathfinders. It's actually a co-ed, if you will, organization, very much like the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, where they get their badges and they go on camporees. Well, 2004, they have this international camporee every 5 years that was in Oshkosh, and it was in Gillette, Wyoming this last year because it had grown. So there were 60,000 kids there in 2024. But in 2004, we took Desmond there. And we had a small little video clip to introduce. There were 36,000 young people there that summer. And they had these 18-wheelers and a big horseshoe. So the kids are contained, 100-foot stage across the center with live programming and a major skit on Moses that year. But they provided us an opportunity to show like a little 7-minute clip of our documentary. The place went wild with these 36,000 kids, and for the next 4 days during the week, we had a theater in the Air Museum there in Oshkosh, where it held 120 people. We showed the documentary 14 times. And each time the fire marshal kind of turned his head because kids were in the aisle. If anything drastically happened, we had a plan to be able to get it. Like we had 140 kids. And from that, we actually empowered those young people to take the documentary back to their school because the official release was on Veterans Day, November 11th, 2004. So these young people could take and show it in their school, raise money for their clubs, and which was Desmond's desire. He just had a love for youth to live a moral, character-driven life and to become upright citizens. So that gives kind of a footprint. And then coming back to that story, an experience of traveling with Desmond in Washington, D.C., when we finished at the World War II monument, he was pretty exhausted, and I, took care of him. Was honored to be able to apply my few nursing skills to take care of him. And he said, Jeffrey, I can't thank you enough for helping me travel and tell my story. He goes, when I'm gone, will you continue to do that? Heavy mantle. Now, I'm sure he has said that to a number of people in his life. Terry Benedict did an amazing job with the documentary, which enabled, us to move forward with this secular film that's been seen by hundreds of millions of people worldwide. So with those two films, let me fast forward to the mission of the foundation. Desmond, loved young people. He wanted to imbue in them a moral-driven character life. And the foundation has 7 character values, very similar to the Medal of Honor Society and the Medal of Honor Heritage Center. They're courage, conviction, integrity, humility, selflessness, faith, and patriotism. So what we have done with the foundation is fulfill Desmond's mission of creating a educational video series. Let me go back real quick. 21 I think 25 years ago, he just wanted a little video done because he couldn't keep up with all of his requests to go to schools and civic organizations. It's way beyond that. We have the documentary told its story, the feature film has told its story. Because we have the story rights with Gabe's amazing contractual foresight years ago, that whatever happened with a nonprofit organization down the road, we'd be able to use film clips from both the documentary and the feature film. So with the team that we were able to amass, I reached out to Dr. Dick Stimbarken, a full bird retired colonel, doctor of education. And I said, Dick, would you be the chairman of an educational committee within the foundation? He'd been on the board for a couple of years, but busy man. And he said to me the Friday morning, I called him. I said, Dick, he says, well, I just had my devotional and spiritual time for myself and thinking, what is it that I need to do next? And he goes, you give me a call. Yes. And after he says, Jeffrey, I'm on board. I'll do it. He says, can I bring a couple of other people with me? Do they have to be board members? I said, no, reach out to your resources. He brought to his writing team another full bird retired colonel, Jonathan McGraw, whose last post was in the chief of chaplain's office at the Pentagon, and a gentleman by the name of Gus Lee. You can look up their vitaes on our website under our board. But Gus was a major in the Army, 82nd Airborne JAG officer. He just happened to teach ethics at West Point for 18 years. So those three men wrote the scripts where we storyboarded, and we had a very gifted editor-director by the name of Fred Knopper, who was there from the very beginning. In fact, it was Desmond who walked into his office years ago. I want a little video of my story. And Fred and I and Dick, we put these storyboards together, film clips from both the documentary and the feature film that could represent the value of each of these character traits. They're not in silos. They cross over many times with film clips that we've used. But you mentioned earlier that you had a teacher who deals with bullying. It seems like that is just, a character value trait in so many young people from generation to generation that it doesn't change. I was visiting with a police officer, retired LA County Sheriff, who had the same kind of program a couple of years ago. And with COVID, the whole thing was shut down. He said, this is an amazing program you have. We need to regenerate this or redo. So the character traits, those are the men who wrote the scripts. Fred Knopper, in his unbelievable skill sets of editing and directing, has stitched those film clips together. So when you listen to the narration of that particular character value, that's the depth. Well, it's not just about looking at a video. What we evolved, and like Gabe said, it's the Desmond Doss character development EDUSODES, and we trademarked Desmond Doss EDUSODES. Jaylene, who's viewing this, our social media director and publicist, guru, has helped us with the legal Zoom for many of the things that we need to do. She has positioned our product extremely well. And the essence of it is, it's a safe place for an 11-year-old to land worldwide. Now, why do I say 11? Because we've taken film clips from an R-rated film and we've trimmed around them to not have the gory, heaviness of battle that is depicted in Hacksaw Ridge. But I can tell you this, our 4 beta site schools from New York to California, the teachers in history, in English, even in Bible classes in different schools, this is appropriate for home study families. We're into the JORTC public school systems that were emerging. Those 4 beta sites gave us significant feedback as we were finalizing and crafting these 7 EDUSODES. It's what we call a point of decision interactive experience. So whether it's a student, whether it's an adult who's watching it in a men's group, the principle is such that it's broad spectrum for an individual to interact. Here is a questionnaire, point of decision interactive questionnaire. And it's what we call a battle buddy, where the students, the power of it is porting it into a classroom, porting it into a civic organization, many different areas. In fact, let me just sidebar for a second. Dick Stimbakken was also the chairman of the National Conference of Military Chaplains for 2 years. It's 7,000 chaplains worldwide that are in active service in all of our military branches. Dick has gone to their convention the last 2 years, and he's going back again in January as an official speaker. They've invited him to highlight, our EDUSODES. Huge impact, because Gabe mentioned earlier, and of course Jonathan McGraw, who taught ethics at West Point. These EDUSODES are broad spectrum, and if you were to see the business plan and marketing plan that I had 5 years ago, all these different spokes of audiences, if we do this right, it can cross into many different arenas and age groups. And in fact, I was on the phone just a day ago with Dick, and he says, Jeffrey, my schedule is freed up a little. I'm ready to start writing a battery of questions that are at a higher level for cadets in the military, and branching off into it being in a corporate setting where businesses and corporations would like to use it for a leadership, series or a special weekend away. That's it in a nutshell, Mike. We believe we've got a product because over 150 kids went through it in our pilot year. And what these schools didn't realize is that, and these kids were writing amazing essays. It could take hours for me to share with them. But I went back to our pilot schools, and I said, you have no idea how valuable your input is. And this is what we'd like to do. We'd like to seed a Desmond Doss scholarship at your schools. So we have 4 of our pilot schools, and we gave 4 $1,000 scholarships, because there's a whole process while the students go through it in a structured way in a classroom. The teachers nominate who they believe the student is, that emulates all of these character traits as a leader in their school. And we had 4 senior students, and 3 of them were young ladies. The most unbelievable essays. A couple of them sent us their video clips of the impact Desmond was having. So what is it that Desmond prayed on that escarpment years ago? Lord, help me get one more. That he was a faithful man. He didn't have he was 140 pounds maybe wet, and over 12 hours he saved 75 men on that escarpment that day in April, May. And his if you see the film Hacksaw Ridge, Lord help me get one more. And I did ask him, traveling with him one day, because we would it was actually in DC. I said, Desmond, you always prayed, Lord. He was a really faithful guy. Lord, help us and protect us from seen and unseen danger. And I asked him, did you pray that on the escape? He says, oh yeah, it was on my lips all the time. In fact, in part of the story, in the crosshairs of Japanese warriors, their guns jammed. There were so many aspects within Hacksaw Ridge that Mel couldn't cover because people would not have believed it. But, here we are, 25 years later. Desmond passed away in 2006. And here we are carrying forward. We're not just perpetuating, we're not just retelling his story. We're carrying forward his legacy with these character values that are material and measurable and impacting young people's lives and adults alike in many, many ways.
No, I'm touched by how you have managed to capture his spirit of faith and courage and humility and generosity, because I know that one of the stipulations he made in order for all of this to happen, the books and the documentary and the movie, first of all, he did not want to be seen as a hero. He wanted all honor and glory to go to God and not him. Number two, he wasn't interested in the money, any money, and a cent of what came forth from the books and the documentaries and the movies. He wanted it to go to his church and then the foundation. And, I'm hearing you telling the story, and I can hear his voice move from, please God, let me save just one more, to now, please God, let me reach just one,
Ooh. Oh, beautifully said, Mike. Beautifully said.
and I'm touched by that. I'm touched by that generosity, that humility, and that desire. I mean, it's almost like he had a crystal ball to see what was happening in the world and how important it is for us to give our next generation of leaders, of parents, of workers, the importance of building a foundation for their life based on these values, and be living always true to themselves and their values. And again, we're a world of many different religions and many different beliefs, but every religion, every belief, every path, every philosophy comes right back to, we have a relationship with something higher. And inside of us, we have the opportunity to rise above, right, the noise and the problems and the negativity. We have the opportunity, by focusing on what's true, the values inside of us, um, and we can change our lives. And in changing our lives, we can change the world. And
And
so,
we're on the World Wide Web, Mike,
yeah,
to all face. We're not proselytizing. This is
yep,
just who this man was. This is what he
yep,
believed. And, what can I possibly do? Major General Austin Rinforth, retired General Marine Corps, is one of our newest board members. I'm just thankful that, Marine Corps, they're the tip of the fighting sword. Kill, kill, kill. And he goes, no, we need more Desmonds. And when we were finishing the little anecdote here, the fifth episode on selflessness. Yes, sacrifice, ours is called selflessness. His constant selfless acts, from Guam to Leyte to Okinawa, not just Okinawa on that fateful night of 12 hours. And, we were at Hope Fest last year in Prescott, Arizona, and he really said, what we have here, folks, are lessons. Take a look at them. Maybe they'll give you some encouragement. And then he gave us this quote: what we do for ourselves dies with us. What we do for others lives forever. And that's what our mission is, to inspire young people to live a character-driven life. But I also say to my board and other individuals, how about those of us who say we're mentors of youth? How can we tweak our moral compass a little and be stronger in our experience? Listen, that's who we are and where we're going. In a week from today, we're actually in Chattanooga at the Heritage Center, which is all 3,500 plus Medal of Honor recipients. Students come there from all over for their field trips, and they can click on this big tablet that's like 6 feet by 8 feet and learn of any Medal of Honor recipient they'd like. There is a permanent exhibit there of Desmond, and we're having a reception there actually next Sunday, October 12th, which is the 80th anniversary of Desmond receiving his Medal of Honor on the White House lawn. And then the following day, we have our golf tournament, our fundraiser. But we have many, many veterans and first responders. And Mike, you contributed. You are enabling two veterans to be able to play as guest of the foundation for what you've done. And that's how we've structured our foundation. We have a long-term goal. I gave 4 scholarships last year, our goal, and we're on track to give 10 next year at graduation. But at the same time, we give back in a very practical way when we have our golf tournament. And the unique thing about our golf tournament, it's not in the same city every year. It travels around the country like the U.S. Open golf tournament, so that we can share our foundation's mission with many, many communities. And we leave scholarships locally when we do that. And next year, stay tuned, folks, because it's going to be in Arizona. But Mike, that's my little plug for what we do. We're a foundation that survives on people's goodwill and donations to help us carry forward Desmond's legacy and his character values.
We hope that the viewers who want to know more about the foundation take the time to go to the website, and there's a lot to learn from it. Not just the EDUSODES, but interesting things that have happened around this story.
Mike, do you have that little video clip you want to play by chance that I sent you?
We do, and then I would like to talk about the documentary one more time. We are going to make everybody who showed up live tonight in our Zoom room, and also we have a number of people who are shown up on Facebook, and I'd like to make the documentary available for them to see at no cost to them. It rents for $4, $3.99 for rental, but we're going to make arrangements to have those folks who tuned in live here on Zoom and also on Facebook. I was going to pay for it myself, and then Gabe and Jeffrey stepped in and said, no, we're going to give you a code and a link that you can give to the folks who showed up. And so I will be contacting you folks who showed up, and you will get a code and a link. But I'd like for you to, this is the page, by the way, if you go to DesmondDossFoundation.org, if you want to let your friends and family know about it, they can watch that, the documentary on this page. But let me go to, let me actually share that page. Sorry about that. This is the page. It's at DesmondDossFoundation.org. On the bottom of there is the link to the Conscientious Objector, right? The documentary, and you'll be able to watch it there. For those of you who are in our audience tonight, I will be contacting you, sending you a special link with a special code, and I will ask that you use the character trait of honor to not spread that out around the world, the free code, because this is an important tool to raise funds for the foundation. And we don't want that to interfere with that. So I do have a clip. I'm hoping that the lords of technology will allow this to play. If not, you folks can watch it at the website. But let's take a try here and see if we can play this for you all. Gonna go to advanced and gonna go to video.
And we'll give them a snippet of what our EDUSODES look like as well.
Desmond T. Doss was a simple and humble young man who went through a wartime experience that challenged his spiritual foundation and his faith. During battle after battle, he displayed an awe-inspiring heroism witnessed by his fellow soldiers in the most brutal and impossible circumstances. His character values of courage, conviction, integrity, humility, selflessness, faith, and patriotism were demonstrated in his daily life. As a result, he was awarded the highest recognition, the Congressional Medal of Honor. The purpose of the Desmond Doss Foundation is to remember his incredible life story, to honor and promote his legacy, and to encourage young people to adopt his values, to live like Doss. In fulfilling Desmond's dream of inspiring young people to live a positive, character-driven life, we have produced 7 dynamic, interactive video educational EDUSODES. Each EDUSODE demonstrates a positive character trait from the life of Desmond Doss. The character training program leads viewers to points of decision to help clarify personal values. Each year, the Foundation awards scholarships to selected students who have completed the training program and have demonstrated a positive character above and beyond. It is one thing to know about Doss. It is quite another thing to live like Doss. What we do for ourselves dies with us. What we do for others lives forever. The 80th anniversary of Desmond receiving the Medal of Honor will be celebrated in Chattanooga, Tennessee in October with a reception and memorial golf tournament. For more information, please visit DesmondDossFoundation.org. Thank you for your generous support in carrying forward Desmond's legacy and character values.
Thank you, Mike, for sharing that with your audience.
That's a very powerful clip. So could you talk a little bit about the ways that our viewers, because, you know, we have some folks with us tonight. Over the next week, we'll have 1,000 people coming through our Facebook page to watch this. And then through the months ahead, it will be on Facebook. It will be on my YouTube channel. I'll be referring to it to encourage people to watch it. Could you tell us a little bit about how we, as parents, grandparents, community members, people concerned right now about the state of the world and the state of our children, how can we get involved?
Well, Mike, all of the EDUSODES on that platform on our website, they're free. They're totally free. We're not charging for them. So all those different entities, public school, private schools, home schools, parents can go on there, and on the way a website is structured, Jaylene, our publicist and social media guru, we have our own YouTube channel. So at the very top, there's a YouTube link, but they can also access them from our website on the blue masthead, Desmond Doss EDUSODES, which we trademarked. And you can scroll down. You briefly showed that. There's an introduction video of what are these EDUSODES? What's the goal? What's the objective? What are we going to get if we go through this? And then there's a little introduction video that we actually start out with, Alice in Wonderland. Can you please tell me which way to go? She asked the Cheshire Cat. And of course, we know the story. Well, it doesn't matter which way you went. And we smashed to, well, it made a whole lot of difference to Desmond's men, which way he went. And then it goes right into our first EDUSODE on courage that deals heavily with bullying and the decisions young people have. So parents, watch them with your children at home. We're porting them into high schools and JORTC programs, as I mentioned. but they're totally free online. And, yes, they're free, but there is an expense to running a foundation. There's a couple of different ways. There's 2 or 3 buttons there that say donate, and you can click on, ways to give. Our icon looks like ways to give to help us to continue to keep these EDUSODES available to the public, and putting through our pipeline, scholarships for youth.
Okay, I'm showing the website now. And so, again, here's the information about the EDUSODES.
And if you click on resources, you go to the top there, Mike. Yes, that's the EDUSODE page because it's highlighted in gold. If you click on resources, there's actually an Assembly Chapel Vespers program that is a little script. And how do I share this in my community? So watch it here, download it onto your computer if you're not going to be near Wi-Fi, stream it directly. So there's multiple avenues for people to easily access. And each of the questionnaires, if you go back up to that resource page real quick and click on resources, and you can go to downloads, the next button down, there you go. There, every one of those, the guidebook is there, the books, each of the handouts, the trailer, each EDUSODE plays, and there's the corresponding handout. Mike, you want to go back over to the EDUSODE page? I didn't realize you were going to be so great. There you go. And then scroll down, click on Desmond Doss EDUSODES, and then scroll down. Keep going. So you can see how students can say, hey, teacher, I'd like to do extra credit. I want to fill this out. But click on the little blue button next to Courage where it says download EDUSODE #1 hand. Taking a second to load there. So
wow.
That is our, not sure what happened there. But you can maybe go back to there. That is where that's what our point of decision questionnaire looks like, where the students can go through it together. It's probably because you're streaming it versus just.
Yeah.
But
they get the idea.
There's an EDUSODE handout for each one, and you should see the pictures that I have from all of our beta site schools where these kids are just, battle buddying together, not just 2, but sometimes 3, and they're going through these questions and wrestling with it. What would I do in this situation? So those 3 men who wrote my scripts, who are highly, high educators, how do we make this where it's very practical and meaningful for young people starting at the ages of 11 and up? And I believe they've given us an unbelievable substantive program. And that's just not me saying it. It's hundreds of interactions that I've had with individuals that not quite seen anything like this. This is really impactful. I'm going to use it in my community. So your audience, viewers, imbue them, make them your own. Many of you probably have your own experience with Desmond out there. He passed your cross, he crossed your paths. And if you want to do a program in your school or church or civic organization, that little script that I have under resources, print it off and make it your own, and interject your own experience, and tell the story of Desmond in your community the way you'd like to.
Well, at this point, I want to open up, if we could take just a few questions, if you and Gabe don't mind. Anyone out there have a question? You can, if you're in the Zoom audience, you can raise your golden hand. If you are in Facebook, just type your comment. I'll be able to read it in Facebook. But does anybody have a question they would like to ask either Gabe or Jeffrey at this point? Okay, here's one on Facebook. Could you mentioned about bullying, and you mentioned that Desmond himself was bullied, and this is a topic we've covered in a past episode on this show. Could you talk a little bit about the bullying he received and yet was unwavering about serving his country, even though the military did not want him. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's well documented in a couple of books that have been written in articles and covered extensively in the documentary. Terry Benedict did a really fine job, and Mel Gibson, covered it where, so much complexity. But Desmond had a deferment. He didn't have to go into the Army, but he wanted to serve as a combat medic, and he was on the verge of being court-martialed, and many other things happened to where, he was actually released from this direct order from a colonel who said, you haven't fulfilled the requirements, and if you don't do this, I'm going to court-martial you. How it played out, he was released to be able to go and serve as a combat medic. And he was hazed. He was in a rifle company, which was another. Well, the Army doesn't make mistakes. And in short, it just wasn't. He started to exhibit his heroism on Guam, and like I said in Leyte, he was hazed many, many times in many different ways. And in our documentary, this really isn't giving the story away. 81 years old, Captain Glover, who was his captain, who wanted to help drum him out of the Army, says with a tear coming down his eyes, we were able to interview, as we call in the industry, talking heads. We had 9 of his men that we were able to Terry was able to get on tape. Many challenges, going to go, and this one dies, this one has this issue. But Glover says, I didn't know the man. And the irony of the story is he ends up saving my life. So yes, he was. So we cover that in the very first episode of Courage, standing up to these really powerful, soldier buddies, if you will. And he held his ground, and he didn't fight back belligerently. But there's this interaction between Luke Bracey, who played Smitty in the movie, that Mel Gibson just captured it so authentically with snatching, Desmond's little Bible and a picture of his bride to be, and it's a powerful scene that really imbues how Desmond stood his ground. He had his integrity. He wasn't going to be pushed and beat up. And Gabe, I know it's one of your favorite scenes. You probably, could make a comment here. It's gut wrenching.
Desmond, you talk about the bullying. Here you see bullying from above, within the hierarchy of the Army, who, and especially his commanding officer, Jack Glover, who literally tried to find excuses to get him out. Tried to get him out on a Section 8, which had to do with mental instability. And you see this played out a little bit in the motion picture, where he's talking to the military psychologist, and he has to come back and say, this guy's perfectly normal. There's nothing wrong with him. He truly believes what he believes. But also, in the documentary, you have a guy by the name of Ken LaFond, who says, he get down to pray, and they threw shoes at him, and they call him names. And these are things which are not depicted in the motion picture, but they're depicted in the documentary. The documentary is so powerful because you're dealing with men who served with Desmond, who view him with a state of awe. That he had profound respect, which he earned because of his stance and because of his unwavering commitment to his beliefs. That really, it was amazing to see this. And so when you see the documentary, it's so much different than the movie. It gives you a very good basis for appreciating the motion picture when you see that everything this guy did was true. It was truth. And when you speak of truth does not generate brutality. Generally, it generates impact, thoughtful consideration where people may not say it outwardly, but inwardly it's like a howitzer thrown within their brain and their heart. You know, am I really doing the right thing here? And because of this, he rose to a level of respect amongst his peers. It's shown a little bit in the movie, more from a shock value. These guys can't believe what he did, but in the documentary, you see it in the way that they talk about it. There's a guy by the name of John Santola from Massachusetts. He says, "I'm wounded," and he said, "I remember a guy going down, his guts had been shot in the intestines, and I hear him going over the cliff. I'll never forget. I'll never ever forget the sound of him screaming when he went over that cliff. And Desmond's here, calm, and the bullets and everything's flying, and he's taking care of me." And I said, "Here, you want my gun? You want my sidearm?" And Desmond says, "No, I don't need that. I don't need that. I don't need that gun." And then he says, really impactful, he says, "What a warrior! What a warrior! He's out there taking care of me." And it's total mayhem. You know, when I talk to people, trying to give them an idea of what this sort of heroism is like, I said, let's picture ourselves in a building or in a classroom or something. Now all of a sudden the guy with the 50 an M60 comes in and starts spraying the room with, you can hit the floor, right? Not this guy. This guy went out in the mayhem. Only grenades being thrown, mortar shells hitting the ground, machine gun fire, and it was just
rescuing many of those men. Rescuing many of those men that had hazed him for those 2 years.
Right. It's the same.
And at one point, when Smitty passes away, in Desmond's own words in the documentary, with the replacements, he didn't want to know their names because, you know, he went through training with these guys for 2 years, and you had your core company, and the replacements. He didn't want to know their names. It was too painful for him to lose those men. So from a human emotional standpoint, he served and served and served again. But and that's just the human condition. You got to separate yourself in some ways in order to be able to do your task and execute. You know, he was an amazing medic. I mean, just an amazing medic, not just with his spiritual fortitude, but he had the craft of battlefield injury and intervention. There's this one scene where a gentleman, both of his legs are blown off, and the other medic says, and you know, don't you know about triage? You know, you got wounded. And he goes, you don't know that. That gentleman lived to be 77 years old. It's quite a story. In fact, it's even depicted in the True Comic book.
Yeah, it's in the documentary.
Written about Desmond in 1945, where he rescued that man. And that's just, you know, his official record says 75. We in the foundation know it's much more than that. Desmond wouldn't accept more than that on his citation. And his citation reads something very unique, Mike, at the very bottom. You know, it's, you know, all far and above. His phrase is gallantry, far and above. And it was President Truman who inserted that word far.
Far
he was astounded to what he had seen, because it wasn't one act that happens, you know, usually in combat. But Desmond started to show his colors in Guam, and then in Leyte, and then on that fateful day in Okinawa, when they were trying to take the the Medea escarpment, it's called Hacksaw Ridge, AKA. And, you know, 17 days later, you know, they finally were able to go past the Shuri line and secure Okinawa. An amazing story and a period in time that, you know, a lot of people today don't even know what happened 80 years ago.
They don't, especially young people. A lot of people who say things and protest and act a certain way have no idea what true mayhem is all about. You know, Jack Audenti, one of the guys who describes Okinawa, he says He says, Medal of Honor, he should have gotten 75 Medal of Honors. And it's true. If I were to drag Jeffrey 100 yards through fire on the field of battle, I would get a Medal of Honor. I mean, because you've placed yourself right in the path of death. It's not like a normal thing to drag somebody like that. He did this time and time and time again, is how Jack describes it at the end of the film. And then you have the old timer Jim Boylan, who he talks about Desmond. You know, you can go to Alpha and Omega and try to describe what this guy was like, and it's just like there was nothing like him. And he says he was just proud to have known Desmond. If you had a chance to be with Desmond and the soldiers that he fought with, it's amazing. You know, I remember sitting at a dining room table before he was going out to Okinawa for a reunion. This was back in 2002. They're at a table in the hotel, food's there, and the captain says, Desmond, would you please say grace? And of course, Desmond couldn't hear, and his wife nudged him, and he looked at her and he said, they want you to pray over the meal. And said, oh, okay. So but it's amazing. He had a higher power overlooking his life, because normal people would not survive. The chances of survival were, slim and none. I mean, trying to get into conquer Okinawa was something else. I mean, if you look at the movie poster, has him standing up there. Well, the guy before him just peeked his head over and he got shot. He was killed. And then Desmond's up there standing. Full bullet, could be killed instantly, and the guys are yelling, "Hey, Desmond, get down from there! You're gonna get killed." He's just stood up there, not a wound, nothing.
Well, a section of the documentary that impressed me. The whole thing impressed me, but the fact that not only did he have such a deep faith that in the higher spirit that protected him. But there's that section about the soldiers that he got to pray with him. None of them were hurt when they went into battle. It was almost like once you open your heart to the power of divine protection, it was almost like his faith was contagious, and they caught it. And when they prayed with him before going into battle, then they were protected by the same, power that he had faith in. And I've personally seen this work. I was on a mission in Africa, and I had to travel from a place where I had given talks. I was a guest speaker. And we had to travel about an hour and a half from the place where we were giving talks. I was asked to have a meeting with this king of a small country that was in between two African countries. And during the drive, we were driving, and then all of a sudden, the driver and the person next to him would start singing a prayer real loud. And they'd be singing a prayer, and then all of a sudden, 5 minutes, 10 minutes later, they'd stop. And we'd start talking again, and 5 or 10 minutes, 15 minutes go by, 20 minutes go by. All of a sudden, they start singing this prayer. And this went on for the hour and a half. And when we got to the king's palace, and we met with the king, and we answered the questions he asked, and we presented what we had presented, and he agreed to allow what our request was going to be. We were getting ready to leave, and I stopped the driver and I said, "What was it with, like, every 10 minutes you started singing this prayer?" He said, "Well, we didn't want to tell you, But all along the road that we traveled, there were terrorist bandits. And what would happen is when they would see a car, they would jump out of the woods, they would shoot out the tires of the car, they would come with their guns, they would take you out of the car. If you were not like somebody like me who they could take hostage and get money for me, they'd just kill you, take everything you had, take the car, and that was it. You were done. He says, this happens all the time. He said, but what we've learned because of our deep faith that we get a nudge 5 minutes before we come to the spot where the bandits are. The Holy Spirit would say, start singing. They would start singing their prayers, and the car became invisible. The car literally became invisible to where the bandits never even knew we were driving right by, right? It's these things that happen when you realize the power of faith and the power of, if we accept that there is a higher power that cares about us, wants the very best for us, but we need to meet it halfway, right?
Yeah.
Beautifully said, Mike. And like Desmond, it's been on record that they don't believe the way you believe, Desmond. But even generals, even though they, we don't believe in miracles, but there's not another word in the English language that depicts what happened. And they're not going to go back up there if you're not with them. You have to collapse in a major motion picture. So many things, like I mentioned, Mel couldn't cover so many aspects of his story and life. But there was another 17 days where Desmond was up there on the escarpment, 12 to 17 days, taking care of wounded, through this. And he didn't come out unscathed. He got injured ultimately, was carried off the battlefield, and had some major medical issues. He was at Walter Reed for over a 5-year period, with tuberculosis that he got from being in that warfare. All of his broken bones and injuries that ultimately happened. He refused to be carried on this stretcher, which Mel said, I can't put that in there. Nobody's going to believe this. He rolled off the stretcher because there was a more seriously wounded soldier, and had his compatriot medics take him, and Desmond crawled 100 yards, and put a butt of a gun to use it.
That was a little more than that. He crawled 300 yards to the aid station. 300 yards. It's a long way. Thank you, Gabe.
Yeah. So, when you think of that, even with all of his injuries and years and years and years, Desmond continued to love and care for youth and try to imbue in them, a belief outside themselves that there's a higher power. And in his own words, I was protected, my God protected me. And he just wanted to encourage young people to think outside themselves. Pretty tough in a me generation and an I generation, even now. But years ago, you said, did he have a crystal ball? There's this Bible verse that I love that Desmond liked, and I know there's non-believers where you got a huge, but God goes before me and he's my rear guard. That was one of Desmond's favorite Bible texts because he experienced it in real time over and over again. But that's one of my closing comments for you, Mike.
I appreciate that. Very fitting closing comment. Again, for you folks who are joining us tonight on Zoom, folks who are joining us on Facebook, folks who are going to join us for the rest of the year on Facebook for the next month, and then on my YouTube site, Please, please, please take the time to go to the DesmondDossFoundation.org, DesmondDossFoundation.org website. Everything we've talked about, all of this information is there. The EDUSODES are there, graciously offered for free for you, your children, your schools, your churches, your communities to take advantage of them. Watch the EDUSODES, download the handouts, and more importantly, connect with them and make them a part of your life.
Thank you, Mike.
Make them a part of your life. If you're so moved, there is a button to donate. A nonprofit that does this kind of work has enormous expense. And if you click on there and donate, every little bit helps. Every dollar helps. And if you feel in your heart that tonight's episode provided you with some inspiration and you'd like to pay it forward, please go to DesmondDossFoundation.org, click on the donate button. But again, take the time to visit the EDUSODES and maybe just think about who in your life could benefit from this, in your family, your community, your friends, church, school, whatever. Think about sharing this powerful tool and powerful message. Again, we are living in a time where it's never been more important to live a life based on values. I end every episode of my podcast with letting people know how important each of you are as individuals. Your light, your courage, your desire to live a better life, be a better person, right? Help the person in your family, the person next door, the person in community. It's so important. And if you think, oh, it's just me, what difference can I make? Think about Desmond. What difference did one person with a powerful faith, with powerful courage, powerful humility, powerful patriotism, right? What the difference one person made in the world? Because you think about the 100 people he saved. They had family, and families had family, and family's family had family. And all of those people touched people. And now the documentary and now the movie. Let's not let this inspiration end with a movie and a documentary. Let's not let it end with, oh, I felt real good about watching this interview, and I felt real good watching the documentary. Don't let it end there as just feeling good. Let it transform you. It's transformed me. Let it transform you and start embracing again those values that cause you to want to come and watch a podcast like mine, watch an interview like this. Let that voice inside of you call you to take the time to embrace these tools, share them with someone else. If you feel moved to make a donation, do that. As I said, as a reward, I'm going to be contacting each of you. The first 25 folks who came in, both on Zoom and on Facebook, I will be contacting you, and we will make available your opportunity to watch the documentary for free. But please encourage others to watch it. It's very powerful. It's the same topic, but it's different from the movie. I've watched both several times. In the movie, you don't have the chance of hearing Desmond, seeing Desmond, and hearing the people whose lives he saved. You won't really have that chance in the Hollywood, movie. Take the time to watch the documentary. Take the time to let how it affected you affect your world and affect the people in your world. So with that, we went a little bit over the time I had expected. So Gabe and Jeffrey, thank you so much for your generosity of time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for all you have done. You will definitely be called upon in the next, probably 3 or 4 months after the golf tournament, and after I want to have you back to tell you about some of the things we've done to spread the word about the EDUSODES, and have you come back on, and we'll talk about progress. I'd like to hear more about, you've set a goal of more than doubling the scholarships in 2026. I want to hear about that, and we'll talk about how we can help with that. So thank you again for all you've done. Thank you for keeping Desmond's spirit and memory and mission alive. And we look forward to seeing you again. Folks who've joined us tonight and will be joining us later on Facebook, thank you for taking this time. Thank you for living a life that is filled with hope and faith and beauty and possibility, right? I love you all. I tell you that every week for my regular viewers. I love you all. I'm so proud to share this time every month with you. And I'm so proud of all that you do to be a better person and live a better life. And I look forward to seeing you all in our next show. And take care of yourselves, and we will see you again soon.